Okay, so we are going to discuss just the terms in the first class today. So, because these terms are going to be used in a number of lectures in molecular biology and genetics. So, tell me first, what is a gene? How do we define a gene, class? I told you the class has to be interactive. I have not prepared a PPT. If you will see, my PPT is all blank. So we need to have an interactive class. The only reason I use PPT is that after the class is over, I will save the PPT and then I will upload it on Moodle. But then I'm going to use it like a board. So you're going to tell me what is a gene? How do we define a gene? Yukti? Oh, Yukti wasn't there. Let me see whose name.
Ma'am, so uh, like a
Yes.
gene is made up of DNA. It contains the information about proteins for the organism, like how the proteins are going to be. So protein code. That yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else? So this was Ayush Verma.
Oh, ma'am, Dev.
Dev, okay. So anybody else? Shalini, Jaskin, Udita?
It is the basic unit for heredity.
Okay, that's another definition. Basic unit of heredity. Okay, anybody else? Agrim Sharma, are you there?
Ma'am, genes are, ma'am, मैं रत्नेश बोल
Huh?
specific regions in the DNA, like
Specific regions in the DNA.
yeah.
This is who?
What?
Ratnesh.
Yes.
Ratnesh. Okay. Specific regions in the DNA.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, Ratnesh, I will write down this as well. Grim Sharma, would you like to say something?
Nothing else. Like all the points are covered, I guess.
Okay. Vishantan?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, genes are basically segments of DNA which code for one or multiple proteins.
Okay, so now a new dimension, one or more proteins. And so one point you people are missing. Think about it.
DNA segment that contributes to phenotype.
DNA segment that contributes to phenotype. Okay.
These define the traits of a human being, or,
Say
or
it again.
characteristic traits defining.
Characteristic traits defining. Okay. So that actually covers in heredity, right? All the traits. Anybody else? Ritika? There was somebody called Ritika, right? Are you people there or left already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So tell me. Okay, tell me, class, have you studied about RNA? I believe DNA, RNA, you people have studied, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
have
ma'am.
you studied class about ribosomes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so tell me, what is ribosome made up of?
Ma'am, rRNA and 20 proteins.
Very good.
20%.
So where is this RNA coming from?
It is produced from gene.
RNA, right? Has, you were saying something? Somebody was saying something.
RNA are generally produced by the genes.
Yes, yes. So that's the only term I wanted to add. So otherwise, basic unit of heredity it is correct. Yes, genes are specific regions of the DNA. This is also correct because yes, genes contain DNA. But what you need to mention is that specific regions of the DNA can be non-genic as well, right? So we need to say that gene is a segment of DNA that contributes to phenotype, fine, but then that encodes for RNA or protein. Okay, so let us define the gene as a segment of DNA which can code for proteins or RNA. And this RNA can be messenger RNA, ribosomal RNA, or tRNA. So when we talk about a cell has all three types of RNA. So ribosomal RNA has a different function, transfer RNA or tRNA has a different function. We are going to discuss these in more detail when we will be discussing the process of protein synthesis. Messenger RNA is the one which is usually converted into protein. So messenger RNA has the information for synthesis of protein, but then there are certain messenger RNAs which are not used for protein synthesis, which are not translated. So when we call a gene is a segment of DNA which can code for proteins or RNA. Okay. So these RNAs they exist as RNAs. Hopefully it is clear, class.
Ma'am, one thing.
Yes.
Gene makes up all type of RNAs.
Yes, all types of RNAs in the sense ribosomal RNA, mRNA, and tRNA. If you are talking about, for example, microRNAs or non-coding RNAs, so we do have such RNAs as well. But remember that these also require, so whenever we say RNA has to have a sequence which we call it as promoter, which I'll be teaching you in the later classes. You will learn slowly in the later classes that why this is grouped under a category called gene. We'll be discussing this in detail.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, should we move further?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Find a genome. How do we define a genome, class? Genome. Okay, in your classes, quite say something. You have done SPL, you have done microbiology, you have done biochemistry.
It's like the collection of the genes of an organism. Would be the genome of the organism.
Of the gene of an organism. What about others?
Now is the complete DNA, or sorry, the complete DNA sequence.
Complete DNA. What about others?
Ma'am, it would comprise of
Is
both the coding
basically
as well as, I'm sorry.
She continue.
Yeah, so it would comprise of both the coding as well as non-coding regions, and in case of prokaryotes, the chloroplast as well as like all the DNA in the that will be present.
So prokaryotes chloroplast. Arey, prokaryotes में chloroplast.
The DNA that is sorry, I'm just a bit confused. The DNA that is present in the form of chloroplast that would also be included.
Right. Okay. Who else was trying to speak? Was this Yukti, Ritika?
oh yeah, ma'am.
Shrita? No.
Oh, ma'am, I was saying that it basically contains all the information needed for organism, all genetic information.
All the okay genetic information. Okay. Others? Dev Priya, you want to add something?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Okay. Ratnesh, Ayush.
No, ma'am. All the information is like all the things have been done, written.
Okay. Okay, what about others? Let me see whose name I'm trying to recall. Ashrita, are you there or left already?
I'm here, ma'am. All the information is there.
Okay. Okay. Dhwani?
Yes, ma'am. Everything seems to be there.
Okay. Let me just, so collection of the genes of an organism is not correct because when we talk about the genome can consist of genes as well as sequences, which we call them as non-coding regions. So in fact, when we talk about particularly in eukaryotes, we talk about the genes. So I would say the total number of gene comprises DNA is only the coding DNA. Rest of the DNA is non-coding DNA. So you have, but then when we use the term genome, it doesn't cover just the genes. Okay, it covers both coding and non-coding DNA. That means it covers the complete DNA sequence. So I would say that the complete DNA sequence, or let's call it complete DNA, the word content. So complete DNA content of the, let's not use the term organism and let's use the term cell. So when we talk about organisms have tissues, and tissues are made up of cells. So when we say genome is the complete DNA content of the cell. Now a cell, like Ashi mentioned, that if it is a eukaryotic cell, it can contain chloroplast, it can contain mitochondria. When we talk about a prokaryotic cell, it can contain, for example, plasmids, or it can contain chromosome, right? So when we talk about the genome is the complete DNA content or total DNA content of the cell, which can include coding as well as non-coding regions, right? And obviously it contains all the genetic information needed for an organism, but when we say all the genetic information needed for an organism, yes, it is true. So here when we talk about prokaryotes, the information, so in eukaryotes 1 to 10% of the DNA codes for coding, right? But when we talk about prokaryotes, the situation is quite opposite. In prokaryotes, most of the DNA is coding DNA, and we have very little DNA which is non-coding DNA. Most of the DNA actually contains genes, and it codes for either RNA or it codes for proteins. But in eukaryotes, particularly in humans, there are 1 to 10% of the DNA is only the coding DNA, and rest of the DNA is actually non-coding DNA. People used to call this non-coding DNA as junk DNA, but later on it was realized that this was not really a junk DNA, but in fact there were sequences which were repeats. So there were different type of repetitive sequences which are called as satellite DNA. So we are going to discuss these later in the later classes, like what are satellite DNA, what are mini satellite, micro satellite and macro satellite DNA, and how these repetitive DNA, which are actually the non-coding DNA, can be used for identifying an individual with the help of a technique which is called as DNA fingerprinting, which is used a lot in forensic sciences. So we are going to discuss these in a little more detail in the later classes. But for now, I hope the definition of genome is clear. It is the total DNA content of the cell. We do not use the word organism because an organism can contain cells which do not contain, for example, nucleus. So let us talk about red blood cells. Red blood cells do not contain nucleus. So the situation can be completely different. So therefore, let's use the term complete DNA content of the cell. And most of the cells contain DNA, with an exception of a few. Okay, so the next term is genotype and phenotype. What is genotype? What is phenotype?
Ma'am, genotype is like the functions or the abilities related to the genes, and phenotype is related to the physical, like observable characteristics and all.
Okay. Very nice, agree. Observable characteristics. What about genotype? What did you say?
It is related to basically genome sequences and all the genomic characters.
Okay, so genotype is actually defined as the genetic makeup of an organism. Okay, so genetic makeup of an organism is called as genotype. So for example, when we write the genotype of, let's say, bacterial cells, then we mention the phenotype. For example, if the bacterial cell is resistant to certain antibiotics, then you can mention that. If the bacterial cell is resistant to certain other drugs, you can mention that. If certain genes are unique, you can mention that. If certain genes are deleted, you can mention that. So there are ways to, for example, mention that. For example, a triangle which is mentioned as delta, the word delta is talking about deletion of a gene, right? For example, when we say gene disruption, so let's say for example, a cell has streptomycin resistance, right? And let's say the streptomycin has disrupted the REC-A gene. So in this case, you represent the genotype by 2 colons. So there, if you write the genotype like this, REC-A and then 2 colons and then strep, that means the REC-A gene is disrupted by streptomycin. Okay, so there are ways to write the genotype. You will be learning this more again in the later classes, but for now, if you remember this, that genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism and phenotype is the observable characteristics or whatever is visible, right? Okay, then let's talk about the size of the genome. Size. The genome sizes can vary from 1 megabases, 1 MB to as high as 11 to 12 megabase pairs, right? In prokaryotes, right? In eukaryotes, the genome can vary from a few megabase pairs to a few billion megabase pairs. So it can be really, really large. Okay. So any idea what's the size of the human genome?
It is 6.4 billion base pairs. I think.
Right. So the genome size can vary depending on the organism. In prokaryotes, the genomes are usually not that large, but in eukaryotes, you can have very large genomes. Okay, then the next is shape. In prokaryotes class, prokaryotes, the genome is circular or linear or both?
In prokaryotes, normally it is circular.
Usually circular, huh? This is what you said?
Yes.
Okay, what about others? What about others? Dhwani, Dev Priya?
In eukaryotes, they are arranged in the form of chromosomes.
Mm-hmm.
For eukaryotes, it will be linear. In prokaryotes, more structural.
Okay. Eukaryotes, it will be linear, but in prokaryotes, usually circular. But you do have bacteria which contain linear chromosomes. Okay. So, for example, when we talk about E. coli, so E. coli has a circular chromosome. Let's take a few examples of linear. So in case of for example, Rhodococcus is an actinobacterium. Genome is, there are examples where the genome is circular in case of Rhodococcus, but then there are examples where the genome is linear in Rhodococcus. Body contains linear chromosome, but many members of actinobacteria, even there are certain streptomycetes which also contain a linear chromosome, but most of them, for example, E. coli, Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, Citrobacter, they all contain circular chromosomes. Eukaryotes, yes, they contain linear chromosomes. Okay, then let's talk about the number. So what about the number of in prokaryotes, do we have one or more? Number of chromosomes? Okay.
As far it is, I know there's only one circular ring of DNA.
Okay. What about others?
There can be separate plasmids in a prokaryote. So I guess that could count.
What others?
Then eukaryotes can have several large number of chromosomes, ranging from more than 1 to.
And prokaryotes have one? So prokaryotes, the general belief was yes, they contain one circular chromosome, but then over the years it was realized that prokaryotes also multiple number of chromosomes. Let's use the term multiple number of different chromosomes. So there are examples, for example, Agrobacterium has got multiple chromosomes. Burkholderia has got multiple chromosomes. So they are examples of bacteria where you do not have just one chromosome. You have more than one chromosome. So you can have two chromosomes which are completely different. So in fact, in case of Vibrio cholerae also, it was realized that Vibrio cholerae also contains two chromosomes, but then later on it was realized that it is not two, it is one chromosome, and the other one is called as. And then besides that, it also contains plasmids, which we will discuss in a little while. Let's first understand the number of chromosomes and the difference between number and the ploidy. So when we talk about eukaryotes, yes, they contain one or more chromosomes, but when we talk about prokaryotes contain one chromosome. There are examples, but then there are examples of bacteria which contain multiple differently sized chromosomes. And the examples I told you, Agrobacterium, Burkholderia, they all contain uh, differently sized chromosomes. Before I explain you what is chromate and we discuss the differences between chromosome, chromate and plasmids, let's first discuss ploidy.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, so do we call like prokaryotes haploid or diploid in general sense?
Right, so that's so haploid and diploid. Okay, so the term here, okay, what is diploid? You tell me first. A diploid
Ma'am,
cell.
which has
Hmm.
which has two different chromosomes or autosomes, what we call them.
Two different
Yes, ma'am, I guess.
or two same?
I'm two same copies.
Two same or two different?
Two same.
Two same. Jaskeen is saying two same. Dev,
So diploid, yes, diploid would be so it has a certain number, but it has two copies of each chromosome.
same, right?
Yeah, same. And
Okay.
haploid would be it has only one copy of one chromosome.
Right. So Agrim. So here when we were talking about multiple chromosome containing bacteria, what we would like to mention is that these are two different chromosomes. So for example, one is like 3 megabase pair in size, the other one is 1 megabase pair in size. The two are completely different in the sequence. So these are two different chromosomes, right? So we still call them as haploid, because they contain two. It's the total genome which consists of two differently sized chromosomes. Following or no?
Yes, ma'am, got it.
On the other hand, when we talk about ploidy, which I was coming to, so ploidy means you have one chromosome which is present in either one copy, which is haploidy, or present in two copies, which is diploidy, or present in multiple copies, which is polyploidy. So what about ploidy in prokaryotes class? Prokaryotes, is it haploid, diploid, or polyploid?
Haploid.
Usually haploid, but in some stages can be diploid.
Okay, some stages. I mean growth stages, you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Be diploid. I guess he's talking about conjugation, merozygote.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, Vishantan. What about others? So is it haploid, diploid, or polyploid? Yukti Makhija, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, most of them are haploid, but I think polyploidy is also possible in some archaea and bacteria.
So prokaryotes may usually, yes, they are haploid, but then for example Corynebacteria exhibits diploidy. Bacteria are diploid. Streptomyces in bacteria only, they are not archaea bacteria, they are bacteria, and you find haploidy, diploidy as well as polyploidy. Growth stage specific diploidy is also there. When we talk about conjugation, we'll be discussing that in detail in later classes, but for now you can have from haploidy to polyploidy in prokaryotes. What about in eukaryotes class? Mostly haploid or diploid?
They're mostly diploid.
Okay.
And but their reproductive
Yes.
specific gametes are haploid.
Haploid, yes. Okay. What about polyploidy? Have you heard of polyploidy in eukaryotes?
So there are some disorders in humans which have where some humans have more than two sex chromosomes, so then they get these disorders,
Yes.
XYY and XXX, which
Right.
are called, I think, trisomy.
Yes. So that we do not call it as polyploidy, that we call it as aneuploidy. Aneuploidy means deviation from the normal set. right? When we use the term polyploidy or diploidy or haploidy, then what we want to say is that throughout they remain polyploid. Throughout the cell, if you select at any stage, it will remain diploid mostly, right? Something like this. So when we say polyploidy is observed actually in plants. In a lot of plants, you will find polyploidy, where the normal set is, I mean, it's not aneuploidy, that means it is not a deviation from the normal set. Like Devpriya just mentioned that you can have trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome. So Down syndrome is like a deviation from the normal set. So normal humans have, for example, diploidy, but any deviation from this normal is called as aneuploidy.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Yes, but when we talk about plants, they do not have aneuploidy. They are, for example, Oryza sativa, which is a plant, it almost always shows polyploidy, right? It's its normal DNA content, which is polyploid. Something like this. So I hope this part is clear to the class. What is gene, what is genome, the size of the genome, the shapes of the genome, the number of the genomes, and the ploidy. Any doubts on this part? Should we move further, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then I would like to explain you two terms which are very commonly used. One is called as a C-value paradox. C-value, what is C-value? Any idea? So C-value, if you see on your screen, can you see the slides, class?
Yes, ma'am.
So C-value is actually a measure of genome size, which is expressed in base pairs of DNA per haploid genome. Please pay attention over here. It says expressed in base pairs of DNA per haploid genome. Okay, haploid genome. So that means it's single copy of the genetic information present in the nucleus. So now I wanted your attention on the table. So see the first column lists the various organisms, for example, Mycoplasma, E. coli, Saccharomyces, C. elegans, Drosophila is a fruit fly, Oryza sativa is rice, Arabidopsis thaliana is again a plant, it's a weed, fish, mouse, and humans. So you have from bacteria to yeast to fruit fly to plant to fish, mouse, and humans. Now what you see is that the genome size varies a lot, right? This is the third column displays the chromosome number and the fourth column displays the predicted number of genes. So I'm going to discuss first the second column, which is the genome size. So tell me what do you notice when you compare column 1 versus column 2? What is so striking over here? Again, everyone is quiet.
It's not like
Don't sleep.
the genome size. I mean, the number of chromosomes are proportional to the genome size. So it can be something like the genome size can be larger, but still the number of chromosomes can be less or things like that.
Right, so no, but then I wanted your attention on first and second column. We are going to come back to third and fourth column later. First, compare the first and second column, which is organism versus genome size. And genome size is C value. So what is so striking over here?
Ma'am, the size of the organism isn't exactly proportional to the genome size. Like it can be, but not very proportional.
Right, it's not necessary. So that is called as so C value is the total DNA of the haploid genome. So for example, what you are seeing in the second column is the C value. So what we are trying to compare is that even if it's a mouse, which is a tiny small animal, and if you compare it with humans, you see that the genome size is almost comparable, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Right. So this term is used, which is called as C-value paradox. C-value paradox explains that the total C-value doesn't directly relate to the complexity of the organism. This.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, aren't humans and mouse equally complex? They're just smaller.
Right. So when we talk about this complexity, we are talking about two tiers of complexity. One is genetic complexity and one is morphological complexity. So morphologically, there is a difference, right?
Ma'am, yes.
Yes. So when we talk about complexity class, there can be two levels of complexity, genetic and morphological. So I'm going to give you an example of genetic complexity as well. So when we talk about genetic complexity, so humans have 3 billion base pairs and amoeba. Amoeba everybody knows or no? Class, do you know what is an amoeba?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So amoeba has 6 billion base pairs. So 3 billion base pairs is humans and amoeba resides in the gut of humans, right? Amoeba is a parasite which causes your stomach upset and all kinds of problems, right? When you have stomach upset, people say that you have some amoeba infection. It is entamoeba histolytica, which is causing you loose motions and diarrhea. You remember that every time you go to the doctor would advise that your amoeba is active. So that's a gut pathogen and it has 6 billion base pairs. So it's a tiny pathogen and it has 6 billion base pairs of the genome. Right, so then the term the C-value paradox says that, and that is why the word paradox is used, because it explains that C-value doesn't directly correlate to the genetic or morphological complexity of the organism. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody in the class? Agrim, Devpriya, Dhwani, Ritika?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So the converse is also true. So what I explained you just now is that humans, when we compare humans with mouse, there is a morphological complexity difference. When we compare humans with amoeba, there is a genetic complexity difference in the sense that the C values are so different. So one is 3 billion base pair, the other one is 6 billion base pair. So then converse is also true. That means you can have two organisms which have similar C value, but the complexity can be different. You're getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, who's going to explain this one more time? Then I'll explain you G value paradox.
Ma'am, so here, humans are quite obviously more complex in the terms of they're larger and they have more complex systems and a larger variety of cells, whereas amoeba is only like a single unicellular organism and is very tiny. But still, amoeba has a larger genome than humans. That is the C-value paradox.
It again for those of you who have not followed. So organisms with similar complexity may have very different genomes. This is also true. And organisms with similar C values may not be equally complex. So we have discussed the example of the latter, right? Organisms with similar C values may not be equally complex, right? Like we compared mouse with humans, but then organisms with similar complexity may have very different genomes. So for this, the example is Oryza sativa. So Oryza sativa, actually there are different species of Oryza. So Oryza sativa is one species. There are different Oryza species. So they all are rice species only, but then they have very different genomes. I mean, the length of the genome varies. Followed or confused?
Yes, ma'am. Followed.
Yeah, yes,
Ma'am,
Matlab.
can you
Yeah,
just
Followed.
repeat that again?
Can I explain what?
The last
That
point.
rice example. Yeah. Can you just
Orisa
say
का
that again?
example. Orisa का example should I explain you?
Yes, ma'am.
So Oryza ka example, I was trying to tell you that you have different species of Oryza sativa, which are all actually rice. They all produce rice, but they can have very different genomes. So it has been observed in case of Oryza sativa.
So in this case, very different genomes would mean like different C values, like different.
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am.
Okay, so now let us look back at the G value and then understand what is G value paradox. So in E. coli, so E. coli has a genome size of 4.6 megabase pairs, and the approximate length of a gene is like 1 kb. So the predicted number of genes are roughly 4,000 or 4,500. In different books, you will find some will say 4,000, some will say 4,500, some will say 4,600. So let's call it a range between 4,000 to 4,600. Likewise, when we compare mouse and humans, they both have 25,000 genes, right? So now when we compare C. elegans, which is a worm, it has also 20,000 genes. When we say fish, fish also has 25,000 genes. So tell me what is so striking here?
Ma'am, the genome size is much different, but the number of genes are almost same.
Almost same, exactly. So then this is the G value paradox, that the number of genes are almost same, but then the organism, the complexities are different. So then the question is, why so few genes? For example, 25,000 in mouse, 25,000 in humans, and 20,000 in worm. How these few genes can make a worm or can make a human, right? So what is responsible for that? Are you getting my point? So why even with the same G value is the total number of genes, C value is the size of the genome, right?
Ma'am, there might be a large number of repeated genes, like genes serving the same function.
Genes serving the same function is will not help, because genes serving the same function means you have large number of genes, but they are serving the same function. But when we talk about complexity, the functions have to be different. So
yes, ma'am. So that is what so like Oryza sativa might have a large number of so for example, let's say I have some sort of a transporter and that is made up of proteins. So we can have those, gene rules like this gene or that gene or that gene. All of those can be used to produce the same same enzyme, for example. So that's what I was. So like Oryza sativa might have a large number of these repeated genes which are all serve the same.
Okay, so Devpriya, what you are saying is correct, that you can have situation that large number of genes are coding for the same function, but what we would like to say over here is that the G value is constant, right? So you do not have large number of genes, you have only 20,000 genes, let's say, or in humans you have 25,000 genes, right? But then the converse is that 20,000 genes in, for example, humans are making, let us say they are making maybe 80,000 proteins. Is it possible? Have you heard of this? So I think the class is aware of one gene and one protein hypothesis, central dogma. Has it been taught? No.
No.
No, okay, don't worry. So the usual idea is that one gene will make one RNA and one RNA will make one protein, right?
Yeah, so that is.
But wasn't it like most of the genes in humans like code for around 4 proteins each.
Yes, that's the thing. So in G value paradox, the G value paradox says that even though worm has 20,000 genes, even though mouse and humans also have similar number of genes, but then the same number of genes can code for multiple proteins, large number of proteins, and this is possible with the help of a technique which is called alternative splicing. And this is also possible with the help of post-translational modification because of several other reasons which I will not cover in today's class. It includes actually ribosomal frame shifting, it includes RNA editing. There are many methods due to which one gene can encode for multiple types of proteins, but the most common one is any idea, students, what is an exon and what is an intron? Have you studied this or no?
No, ma'am.
No, okay, then don't worry. We'll discuss this in later classes. So basically, what I'm trying to explain you is that in case of eukaryotes, one gene can encode for multiple types of proteins, and this is possible by a method which is called as alternative splicing. And in alternative splicing, what happens is that the entire segment of DNA is divided into different shorter segments which actually can be classified as intronic regions and exonic regions, right? So for example, let's say if the gene is 1 kb in length, right, 1000 base pairs, 1 kb in length, then in this 1 kb length you divide this into segments of 100, right? So you will get how many segments? Array, what happened to my class?
10.
10.
10, yes, very good, 10 segments. Now out of these 10 segments, let us say 7, or just for the ease of convenience, let's say 5 are exonic and 5 are intronic. So intronic regions do not actually code for proteins, and exons actually code for proteins, and these exons can be joined differently. For example, if there are 5 exonic regions, so exon 1 can join with exon 2, 3, 4, 5. This is one type of protein. Exon 1, 2, 3 is another type of protein. Exon 2, 3, 4, 5 is a third protein, right? Exon 3, 4, 5 is another type of protein. Exon 1, 4, 5 is another protein. We're getting my point.
Ma'am, like there are different combinations and which
Yes,
amount for this G value?
exactly. Which amounts for this what?
Like the paradox.
The
Like
paradox, right? So the G value, I mean the G. So one gene is encoding for, let's say, in the example that I gave you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exonic regions. So in this case, one gene is giving rise to maybe 5 proteins. So this is what is G value paradox, that you can have same number of genes, but then they can encode for large number of proteins, and therefore the G value paradox says that the number of genes cannot be directly related to the complexity of an organism, because the same number of genes can encode for large number of proteins. So it is not that the more complex the organism is, it is going to have more number of genes. Followed Agrim Dev Priya.
yes, ma'am.
Was it too much? It was okay, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so maybe we have like 6 minutes. We can have a quick revision of what we discussed in today's class. So who is going to explain me C value paradox? Maybe somebody else should try. Let me see who is there. Jaskin Singh, would you like to try? Are you there or left already?
Yes, ma'am.
Jaskin, tell me, what is C value paradox?
Ma'am, organisms with similar complexity may have many different genes and vice versa. is
Very
possible.
different genes, nahi, genome sizes. C value is genome size.
Yeah, see genome size.
Okay,
Like
G
we were
and C का easy way to remember is
referring
C का
to
मतलब chromosome. Although C value means constant value,
it to the
but
genome
C
size
means
only.
chromosome and G means genes. है ना? Don't forget, G means gene and C मतलब chromosome. Okay. हाँ, so yes, just continue. Organisms with similar complexity may have very different, not genes,
Genome
genome
size.
sizes. Very good.
Yeah.
So give examples for this.
So, ma'am, like we discussed in the various species of rice.
Right, good. Okay. The converse, who is going to tell us the converse with similar C values?
Ma'am, like humans and mouse,
Okay.
like they have a similar complexity.
Similar complexity? Yeah, similar C values.
Make similar C values, but
May not be equally complex.
right.
Okay. Okay, what about G value? Everybody is following or no? Ashrita following? Maybe she's left. Yes. G value, Ashrita?
G value means even if the number of genes among the species, among the different species is same, but the number of proteins or the genome size can be different. Because it's an
Right, Ashrita. So if you are asked to define a G value, so G value explains that the total number of genes. G value का मतलब total number of genes. C value का मतलब chromosome length, haploid set का, right? So G value, so that means total number of genes cannot be directly related to the complexity of an organism. That means if you have a worm that also contains 20,000 genes, when we compare humans, worm is a tiny worm, right? And humans are huge. So still the number of genes are 20,000 or 25,000. So what we are trying to say is that the number of genes cannot be directly correlated to the complexity of an organism. And this is made possible because the one gene can encode for multiple types of proteins by a mechanism which is called as alternative splicing. Hope it is clear to the class. Dev Priya, Vishantan, Ashi, Udita, Yukti.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in case you have any doubts, we are going to discuss this in Friday's class.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll close the meeting now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.